In November 1928, the banana plantations along Colombia's Caribbean coast had become a powder keg. The United Fruit Company, an American corporation that controlled vast stretches of land around Santa Marta and Ciénaga, employed tens of thousands of Colombian workers under conditions that had grown intolerable. Workers lived in company towns, were paid in scrip redeemable only at company stores, and labored without written contracts, fixed hours, or basic sanitation. On November 12, 1928, more than 25,000 workers launched a coordinated strike, demanding written contracts, 8-hour workdays, 6-day weeks, and an end to the exploitative coupon payment system. The strike paralyzed the banana trade, and the fruit rotted on the trees as workers refused to harvest. United Fruit wielded enormous political influence throughout Central America and the Caribbean, so much so that critics called these nations banana republics. The company's executives pressured the Colombian government relentlessly, warning that continued labor unrest threatened American investments and could invite U.S. military intervention. President Miguel Abadia Mendez, already governing under a conservative administration, suspicious of labor organizing, faced intense lobbying from both the company and the U.S. diplomatic mission in Bogotá. Internal government cables reveal that officials feared being labeled as unable to maintain order. By late November, the president authorized the deployment of Colombian army troops to the Banana Zone under the command of General Carlos Cortés Vargas. In the early hours of December 6, 1928, thousands of striking workers and their families had gathered in the main plaza of Ciénaga to hear an address and await news of negotiations. General Cortés Vargas arrived with his troops and issued an order for the crowd to disperse within 5 minutes. Accounts differ on what happened next. Some survivors reported that the general gave no real time to comply before ordering his soldiers to open fire. Machine guns and rifles tore into the densely packed square. Men, women, and children fell amid the chaos. The shooting continued as people fled down narrow streets. By dawn, the plaza was littered with bodies. Soldiers reportedly loaded corpses onto railway flat cars, and witnesses later claimed that trains carried the dead to the coast, where they were dumped into the Caribbean Sea to conceal the scale of the killing. In the massacre's aftermath, the Colombian government moved swiftly to control the narrative. Official reports claimed that only 9 people had died, a figure later revised to 47. Military authorities seized local newspapers, shut down telegraph lines, and arrested journalists who attempted to report on the events. General Cortés Vargas justified his actions by claiming that ichthyosis communism and foreign agitators had infiltrated the workers. United Fruit issued statements downplaying the violence as a regrettable but necessary response to lawlessness. The U.S. State Department accepted Colombia's version of events without investigation. For years, the massacre remained a suppressed chapter mentioned only in whispers among survivors and their descendants. Despite the government's efforts, the truth could not be entirely erased. In 1929, a young Colombian congressman named Jorge Eliezer Gaitan traveled to the Banana Zone to investigate. His fiery speeches in the legislature, where he displayed photographs and survivor testimonies, shocked the nation and earned him lasting fame as a champion of the working class. Gaitan's exposé forced a modest official acknowledgement of wrongdoing, though no military officer was ever prosecuted. Meanwhile, survivors formed clandestine networks to preserve their memories, passing down oral histories to children and grandchildren. The massacre became a touchstone for Colombia's labor movement, fueling organizing efforts that would shape the country's turbulent 20th century. Decades later, the Ciénaga massacre found its way into world literature. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who grew up in the Banana Zone hearing stories of the killings, immortalized the event in his 1967 masterpiece, 100 Years of Solitude. In the novel, the army massacres striking workers, loads their bodies onto a 200-car train, and dumps them into the sea, while the government insists nothing happened. Garcia Marquez's fictional rendering, rooted in the testimonies he had collected, introduced the massacre to millions of readers worldwide. The novel's surreal treatment captured the absurdity of official denial and helped cement the event in global consciousness. It was not until the late 20th and early 21st centuries that Colombian historians, aided by declassified U.S. diplomatic cables and newly accessible archives, began to reconstruct the full dimensions of December 6, 1928. Researchers now estimate that between 800 and 3,000 people may have died, though the exact number will likely never be known, given the systematic destruction of evidence. In 2008, on the 80th anniversary of the massacre, the Colombian government issued a formal acknowledgement of the atrocity. Memorials were erected in Ciénaga, and December 6 became a day of remembrance for labor rights. The Banana Massacre stands as a stark reminder of how corporate power, state violence, and deliberate amnesia can converge to erase inconvenient truths, and how the persistence of memory can ultimately bring them back to light.